Right, good morning. Apologies for a croaky voice. Siman Kuf Peiches. The nusach of the bracha shlishis for Dinei Birchas Hamazon b'Shabbos, v'Atoy b'Birchas Hamazon, interesting halachos. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph. Acha shechasim b'nei Yerushalayim. So after we say the bracha of b'nei Yerushalayim, Yane Omein Acha Birchas Atzmo. Yeah, he says that in the nusach of the Bensching, it says V'nei Yerushalayim HaKadosh Rabbeinu Baruch Atah Hashem b'nei Berachmo Yerushalayim Omein. So the Mechaber says he says Omein after his own bracha, because that's the end of the Doraisa section of benching, the first three brachas. The fourth bracha is not min Torah. Says Rashi, it says Mishnah Berurah, okay. Base. Says the Mechaber, Omein zeh yomernu belachash. This Omein he should say quietly, the people shouldn't realize that Hatov HaMeitiv is not min Torah, and people might come to be mezalzel and treat it a little bit flippantly. Says the Ramah, "V'nira davka k'shemavarich levadoi," that only as if he's making a bracha for himself. Ve'ein oinin omein achasha brachas, and he's not saying omein after other brachas. Avol k'shemezamnin oinin olav kasha omein. But if a person is anyway saying Amen to another person's brachas, then Afal Gav da Mavarich Eina Gamkein, even though the Mavarich says Amen, everyone says themselves Amen on this bracha of V'nei Yerushalayim, nonetheless, Mikal Mokum Ein Nika Kol Kachoy V'Achem Einim Gamkein Imay, and therefore you're allowed to say Amen to somebody else's V'nei Yerushalayim. V'chein ha-minig b'medina Seilu, says the Ramah, and that is indeed the minig in Ashkenaz. La'omer b'kol ram, afil ha-mavarech atzah k'shezam mezamnin, that even a person himself, you can say Amen on that bracha, even in a loud voice. V'ulai hu mehai time, maybe that's the reason, because you're saying Amen to other brachas in any event. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'nira, the dafka v'yesh miyashvin ha-minig, mitamacha, says the Mishnah Berurah, I've got another reason, in addition to the Ramah, shelo choshev lezalzel bracha revius, in those days, there was a concern that people might treat the fourth bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv a bit more flippantly, because in those days, the workers would go off to work. That was the Doraisa benching. As soon as they say Amen after V'nei Yerushalayim, they'd go off to work. Because Chazal didn't require them to say the fourth bracha, but they bitul melachta shabalabais, because it would cause a loss for the balabais. Lakach hayatzarich la'anus omein belachash kadei shleim yishu ha'pe'alim ve'akirish bracha revius eina min ha'torah. Therefore, they say omein to that bracha quietly, so that the pe'alim shouldn't realize that it's not min ha'torah. That's the Mishnah Berurah's svar. And they'll come to treat the fourth bracha cheaply, even though there isn't bittul b'melacha. But nowadays, nowadays even Palim bench four brachas. They say the fourth bracha. We're not really worried about this anymore, and therefore you can say Amen, and we're not worried that that's going to cause a zilzul. And according to my reason, says the Mishnah Berurah, even if you do it b'yechidi where there is no zimun, and that seems to be the minig that you say Amen, even if you're benching b'yechidus, you say Amen, you can do it out loud. There's no concern anymore about that. Okay. So lo yom b'nei Yerushalayim Amen b'nishim achas. You shouldn't say Baruch Atah Hashem b'nei berachim of Yerushalayim Amen in one breath. Yeah, b'nei Yerushalayim Amen in one breath. Rag yamtin k'tzas achatevus Yerushalayim v'achach yom Amen. So it's b'nei Yerushalayim Amen. Kadei shelo yeh mashma shegam ha'amen misiyam ha'brachu, that the Amen shouldn't be part of the siyam bracha. So just to summarize, that in base we've said that although the Mechaber says you say Amen belachash of V'nei Yerushalayim HaKadosh Rabbeinu Baruch Atah Hashem b'nei berachim Yerushalayim Amen, you should say belachash. The Ramah says the minhag is to say it normally in the same tone for two reasons. One, the reason he gives, and the reason the Mishnah Berurah gives. The reason he gives is because in any event, when there's a zimun, you're saying Amen to the person's brachas, on Hazanis, Hazanis Hakol. Therefore, there's not a concern. And the Mishnah Berurah says in those days the concern was because that is bittul malacha, but nowadays you say the fourth bracha anyway, so therefore it's not really a concern. Okay, good. Let's carry on. Gimel. Tzarich lahazke b'bracha shlishis malchus beis David. Now, in the next bracha of Bensching, we mentioned malchus beis David. The next bracha, whereas in Rachim, so Rachim, Rachim Hashem Elokeinu, V'Alishem Recha, V'Altziyah Mishkan Kvedecha, V'Malchus Beis David Meshichecha. Right, so we mentioned Malchus Beis David in the third bracha. Tzarich lahaski b'bracha shlishis Malchus Beis David. Ve'ein lahaski bo shum Malchus acher. We don't refer to the Malchus V'Kadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, if you're saying Malchuscha, which is your Malchus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Malchus Beis David Meshichecha, that's a mistake. She'ein lahashvas Malchus Adar and Malchus Adishmaya. You can't equate the heavenly Malchus HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the sort of the earthly one of this world. V'chein ein lo meba Avinu Malkeinu. We say Avinu. What do we say? Malkeinu Avinu Reinu Zuneinu Farneseinu. Some nuschos is Avinu Malkeinu. He says you shouldn't say that for the same reason. Because you can't refer to the Malchus of Shemayim in the same breath as the Malchus Beis David. You can't equate the two. V'yesh Omrim, says the Mar, Ta'af Kashem Yalav Yovoi Lo Yisayim Melech Chanun V'Rachum, for the same reason. Ele Yedalig Milas Melech Usvar Nechoinehi Avalo Roisi Nagin Kain. Interesting. Says the Mar, I get the svara, it makes a lot of sense that you don't say Melech Chanun V'Rachum, because you can't mention Malchus in this third bracha, because you're going to equate it with Malchus Beis David, which you can't equate the heavenly and earthly kingdom. But I don't see anyone being noig like this, and therefore just stick to the text.
In brackets.
Really? Yeah, really. So that's why. But the Ramah says, don't worry about it. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Gimel, Malchus Ashum Malchus Acher, Hainu Kugoyin Hold the Messiah, Mechaber Lekame, like the Mechaber is going to say. V'ha'omer, tzorach lema v'lochein ha'omer, v'cheinu batur. Okay, Avinu Malkeinu, ele Yomar, Avinu Re'enu, which is our nusach. That's the nusach in this siddur. V'af al gav the ena omer b'yachad mamish im Malchus Beis David, even though you're not saying Malchuscha or Malchus Beis David, it's a bit later, it's not the same breath. Mikol Malkum given to Bechad Brachu, since it's all in the same bracha, Lav Orach Arla Tkuri Malchus Deshmaya, Etzad Malchus Debasudam. You don't mention the heavenly Malchus together with an earthly one. Avaloi Roisi, and I don't see people who are worried about this final concern of Melech Chanun V'Rachum. I'm not saying Melech. V'achronim Kosu Tamnez, and the Achronim give a reason for it. Given the Inyan Bifnei Atzman Legamrei, it was a separate topic. Lo Kapdina Bezeh, we're not worried about it. V'oimrim Oisok Kamoshi Musderes Betfila Shmona Esrei Lochein Ein Limchois Biyad Hanogim Kain. And that's the Nusach in Shmona Esrei anyway of in Yalav Yovei. So therefore, there's no concern to say what's the lashon Melech Chanun V'Rachum. Okay, and that seems to be what we do. Okay, Dalet. Nusach bracha zu pesach bo Rachim Hashem Elokeinu. Yeah, that the third bracha begins Rachim Hashem Elokeinu. Oy Nachamenu Hashem Elokeinu. Now that we will see in the Mishnah. That is said in the base oval. V'choisin bo Bein Yerushalayim. We finish off the bracha Bein Yerushalayim. Oy Menachem Tzion B'Vinyan Yerushalayim. Ve'ein l'shanas hanusach b'Shabbos l'chol. We don't change Shabbos l'chol, even though it's a request, and therefore requests you can't really make on Shabbos. We don't change the nusach. The bein b'Shabbos, bein b'chol, oim nusach echas. We say the same nusach. Says the Ramah, v'yesh oimrim da'oimrim bein b'rachim of Yerushalayim, v'chein nagim. And that is indeed our nusach. That's what we're noihig. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot in Zayin, oy nachamenu. So if you look at number 4, he explains, when do we say nachamenu? Ubebeis ha'oval, Kosav ha'shulchan aruch, sheyesh moisifim bebrocha ha'shlishis nachim Hashem Elokeinu is Avel Yerushalayim, Baruch ato Hashem menachem tzin bebein Yerushalayim, v'chein mutfas b'sizvidurim levnei edus ha'mizrach. And that indeed is the nusach over there. Okay, so that's not our nusach, but you do find that. Hainu, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot and Zayin, Nachamenu Hashem Elokeinu b'Yerushalayim Yirecho, uvetzin mishkan kvedecha, uvemalchus beis David Meshichecha, uvebayis ha'gadol v'ha'kodesh. Okay. V'choisim bo oy menachem, miloshen zeh mashma, she'af im posach berachim, if you mutzer lachtem menachem. The implication is that even though you began in one nusach, you can end with the other. You began with rachim, and you can end with menachem. Even though you really should parallel the opening and the closing should be the same, and this is not. Less lambot, don't worry about it. It's the same theme. That if you began with Rachim, you should end with that theme as well. And you shouldn't deviate from our nusach. The Rachim. Yomer b'Shabbos gam kein rachim. That's what we say chol. That's what we say on Shabbos, which is indeed our practice. The afal gav the also litvei tzorchav b'Shabbos. You can't be tovei tzorchav. You can't make personal requests on Shabbos. Hachashani, saying rachim is different. The tevis bracha kachi tomid. This is the nusach of the bracha, and we've got a bench on Shabbos, and therefore it's okay to include it in the standard text. V'gam kol harachman yochel loymar b'Shabbos, and so to all the harachmans you can say as normal on Shabbos. Afal pi she'eino mitofis habracha she'dinu chachamim, even though it's not really the core text the Chazal instituted, shekim she'nogu hakol amrim b'chol pam she'mevorchim b'chazamazim, because they're later additions, but this is what Klal Yisrael and Noyeg. Therefore, nas eloim ketofis bracha ve'in b'zeh mishum she'elas rachav b'Shabbos, and therefore it's not a problem of she'elas rachav on Shabbos, and you can say rachem, and you can say the rachamons as normal. If you look at number 5, an interesting point. Umitam zeh kosav hakseis hashulchan she'af she'aminig le'echoiz es hakseis rak al yichasreinu. Yeah, even though you really hold the kos mikadin till Ali Chasreinu, which is the end of the 4th bracha of benching, the Ikka benching, Mikom Rokem Roy Loichse Gam Bamiris Rachmon. It's appropriate to still hold it for the Rachmons. We just said this is the text of benching. V'kosu Hashari Tshuva Sheyachzena Dachri Bracha. And you should hold it to the very end, and so to the Shevet HaLevi until you say Ber Pragofen. Okay, now interesting. So too the bracha of the Orach. Yeah, if you're a guest at somebody's house and you say Yirotzim for the birchas of the Orach, Kosav Birka Yosef, Shaminik Poshatu Shigam B'Shabbos Mevorach Orach Esvalabais. Even though it's being Shol Tzarchov, you're asking for things, but that's part of benching, and therefore you can say it even on Shabbos. Shari Kol, it's all mitofes and bracha birchas hamazon. That's the text. Okay. They once gave Rav Hutner to bench, and in some big convention, a Torah Masorah convention or something like that, and he asked for a bencher. He says, because I only say up to Ali Chosreinu every day, and the minig of the world is to say more, and I don't know it. So can you give me a bencher so I can bench the rest of it, because I don't know anything after Ali Chosreinu. Interesting. Okay, Nuscha Achas says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotzen Yud. V'hagra Kosav she'eko kaharif. In the weekdays you say Rachim no, or Shabbos Yom Menachamenu, or Masuyim Menachem. Okay, our minig is not to do that. Whenever we daven for Yerushalayim to come back, it's always Berachamim. There should be a parallel between the beginning and the end of the bracha. It's not ma'akev if you didn't do it. If you just said nachem at the end and all the other end. Okay, hey. B'Shabbos omer Retzei v'achal etzeinu. So all very well known. On Shabbos you add in Retzei to benching. Of Rosh Chodesh v'yontav v'chodesh hamoed omer yala v'yaveh. Ve'im echol echol mehem b'Shabbos. And if one of these days falls on a Shabbos, omer Retzei v'achal etzeinu v'ach kach yala v'yaveh. In that order. Ve'ena maske shel Shabbos b'yala v'yaveh v'lo shel yontav v'chodesh hamoed v'rosh chodesh b'Retzei. They keep separate. Retzei is for Shabbos and yala v'yaveh is for the other things. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Lefisha haskarazu v'chein yala v'yaveh. What are they doing over here? The answer is because they're part of our tefillah. We're davening for things. Rachim Hashem Lekeinu, and therefore she gam came bakashas rachamim v'lo beberchas aretz shehidah, but not in the second bracha, which is hidah, which is thanks. Ve'im hiskim beberchas aretz, and if you did lo yotza, you're not yotza. V'tzorich lachzav v'lahaske ben Yerushalayim. You got to go back and you got to say it to ben Yerushalayim. V'achach yalav yaveh. You say Retzei first and then yalav yaveh. It's more todir than Rosh Chodesh or Yontif. The Chaim the Chol Mokum todir kodim. But the Eved im Hichlif bevada yotza. If by mistake you said Yalav Yoveh first and then you said oops Retzei and you say Retzei, then that's okay. You're Yotza, so that's okay. But Yalav Yoveh The Hokva Hiske Retzei. You don't mention Shabbos in Yalav Yovei because you've already mentioned it in Retzei. V'lama Yachzav Yaskrina. Why are you mentioning it the second time? Retzei V'achal Etzeinu. Do'atignu al Zeh Nusach B'fnei Atzmei. B'Yalav Yovei. V'lama Yachbelenu Pamayim. Why do you need to say it again? So therefore Retzei is for Shabbos and Yalav Yovei is for Rosh Chodesh and the thing. The truth is Vov is quite short. We can just do Vov today. Let's do it quickly. Ta V'lo Hiskir Shal Shabbos. Yeah, the famous question. What if you didn't say Retzei on Shabbos? Omer Baruch. This sif is talking about a very specific case. In other words, you do the first 3 brachas of Bensching. You say Hazonis Olam. Then you begin Noda Lecha and you finish off Haris Hamazon. And then you begin the 3rd bracha of Bensching Rachim No. And you finish off Uvnei Yerushalayim Rekodesh Baruch Ato Hashem Beini Brachim Avishlam Amen. And you realize you forgot to say Retzei. So you should have said Retzei before Uvnei Yerushalayim. But you haven't yet started the 4th bracha, which is Baruch Ato Hashem Lekenim Melech Olam Okel Avinu, etc., etc. That's what this sif is talking about. Tav Lehiske Shal Shabbos. Then you say the following bracha. Omer Baruch Ato Hashem Lekenim Melech Olam Shenosin Shabbos Limnucha Lam Yisrael Bi'ava Lo'isel Lebris Baruch Ato Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos V'im Tav Lehiske Shel Yom Tov Omer Baruch Ato Hashem Lekenim Melech Olam Shenosin Yom Tov Yisrael Lo'sasin L'Simcha Es Yom Chag Rapton Yazeh Baruch Ato Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim. Then you say both. Omer Shenosin Shabbos Limnucha Lam Yisrael Bi'ava Lo'isel Lebris V'Yom Tovim L'Sason L'Simcha Es Yom Chag Rapton Yazeh Baruch Ato Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos Yisrael V'Azmanim. All of these brachas you do it with the Shem and with Malchus. And the reason why it works, like I just said, this bracha you only slot in if it's before you've started the 4th bracha of Atov HaMeitiv. But if you miss out Yalav Yov and Yom Tov or Retzei on Shabbos and you've already started the 4th bracha, then you've got to go back to the beginning.
At night also?
Yeah. Not for Rosh Chodesh, we'll see. But for, let's say, Yom Tovim.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah quickly. Vov. Sif Kotzen Tes Zayin. V'lo hisker shel Shabbos. V'afilim sofik loim lo hisker loim. Even if you're not sure, Talin and the Mistomet bevad leiske Mistomet, you didn't do it because you just go the normal nusach. Omer Baruch Ato Hashem. If you don't know the nusach of this bracha, you're out somewhere, you haven't got a bencher, so go back to the beginning. And if you know the beginning and the end, and even though you don't know the rest of the nusach properly, say it and you don't have to go back to the beginning. Yom Tov Yisrael, that's our nusach. L'sosan l'simcha, of Rosh Hashanah, ein oimrim l'sosan l'simcha. You don't say that. And gam ein oimrim u'dvarach malkeinu. V'zeh nusachai. Baruch Ato, this is the nusach. Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Shenosin yom tovim lam Yisrael v'yom hazikaron hazeh. Ve'einu chosin bo kamei b'Rosh Chodesh. You don't finish it off like on Rosh Chodesh. Zeu das HaMagen Avraham shechol HaKnesset HaGdolah shemash v'Rosh Hashanah l'shay yom tov. Aval harbe achronim miskimu l'das HaKnesset HaGdolah v'al kein tzorich lachtem Baruch Ato Hashem mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. You basically just follow the nusach in the bencher or in the siddur. That's if you forget it. Ve'im shochach v'hiskel atov ha'meitiv. Now, this is quite common. If you forget Retzei, you then just say Retzei then, right? If you've started with Yerushalayim Rekodesh, Baruch Atem B'nei Brachim Avishlam Amen, and you haven't yet started the next bracha, so then that's what this sif is talking about. You go to the he's got it at the bottom here, the text and the art scroll, and you say Baruch Ato Hashem, and you say the nusach of this sif. If you've already begun the 4th bracha, Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu Avinu Malkeinu, etc., etc., V'em shochach v'hiskel atov ha'meitiv, Gam kein das HaMagen Avraham, the Shuvei Nechayzeh, Kamei B'Rosh Chodesh, Ve'eni Rabbi Chelik Olav Osfir Lo Nechayzeh, V'yom HaKippurim, Ve'eni Nechayzeh, Shetzorech Lechel, B'yitzorech Loima, B'yalav Yovei, K'd Lekam B'Simen Tov Rishut Ches, Sif Yud, Ve'im Pasach B'atov HaMeitiv, Ve'niska Shaloima Yalav Yovei, Ein Tzorech Lachzor, or Kamei B'Rosh Chodesh, on Yom Kippur you forget it, he says you don't have to go back, like on Rosh Chodesh, like you said, Yossi, Ve'im Niska Kodim Shisel B'Roch Atov HaMeitiv, Yesh Oimrim, Tzorech Loima, Baruch Shenosin Yom Kedoshim Yisrael, Es Yom HaKippurim Hazeh, B'li Chasima. V'yesh oimrim, the bezel lo tzig nechom in klal nusach bracha lahashnim askrais yalav yovei. V'chol shelo yomah b'mkoimai, shuv ein achayze v'chein mistabra. On those days, you don't have to repeat it. Now, if it's Yom Tov and Shabbos, oimeh, u'mayri, sheshochach v'lo yom shnehem. You didn't say Retzei and yalav yovei. Lo Retzei v'lo yalav yovei. Lo hachitzorich lichol shnehem. That's why you say that bracha with both. Aval im shochach shel Shabbos levad, Oimer Rak, Asher Nosen Shabbos Limnucha, V'chein B'Sheshochach Shel Yom Tov Levad, Oimer Asher Nosen Yom Tov Lam Yisrael, etc. V'chol HaBrochas, all the Perish Pesichas HaBrochas, Kaidem Shehisra Tov, Like I said, you've said Baruch Atah Hashem Beini Bracha V'Shalayim Amen, and then you say Hey Ya'alev Yoveh Hey Retzei. That's when you say this bracha. You say, you can even be as far as Baruch Atah Pasha D'Chayzel Retzei. It's not too late. You can say Retzei or Ya'alev Yoveh. Yeah, if, for example, you say Uvnei Yerushalayim HaKodesh Mirameinu Baruch Atah, it's not too late. You can say Retzei then or Ya'alev Yoveh. Then you say Uvnei Yerushalayim again. Baruch Atah Hashem, i.e., you say Uvnei Yerushalayim HaKodesh Mirameinu Baruch Atah Hashem. Then you do the old trick. From Apostle from Tehillim, Kadesh Lo Yehei Hashem Levatola. Faradain below Sima Bracha Choyzel Retzei, and then you go back to Retzei. Ad Sheis Latov Kosa B'Chaya Odom Rotzolema. You said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Hakel Ze Mikras Chol Bracha Zu. That's the beginning of this bracha. Avalim Omer Rak Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Yesayim Asher Nosen Shabbos Lenucha. It's not too late. You can throw in this bracha. V'achar Kach Yachzav V'Yoma. Birchas HaTorah V'Amitziv Ayim Be'alacha the Rish Birchas HaMozen to Kim the Kvas Siyim say the brachas the Raisa V'Siach Daita Mehem U'Pesach B'Torah V'Amitziv Domi L'Akiras Raglayim B'Tfilas Shemon Esra. It's as if you finished that part of Shemon Esra to Chayz the Rosh. You got to go back. V'Imtol Be'ezedov V'Imtol B'Bracha Revius K'Goyin Sh'Layom Abba B'Shem Malchus Afal Pisha Kva Gomar Oiso Eina Chayz L'Ala Torah V'Amitziv Shei Bracha B'Vnei Atzma. Okay, so just to summarize, we add in Retzei and Ya'alev Yoveh, as we know, between in the third bracha of benching. If you started with Uvnei Yerushalayim HaKodesh Mirameinu, and even if you said Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Atah, you can. It's not too late. You can say Retzei and Ya'alev Yoveh. If you said Baruch Atah Hashem, you say Lamdeini Chilkecha. If you finished and you said Baruch Atah Hashem Beini Bracha V'Shalayim Amen, then you add in the bracha of this sif, which is found in many benches. If you've already started the fourth bracha, you said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Hakel Avinu, then you have to go back to the beginning of benching. Okay.